Morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a really good day so far. I've certainly had quite a number of really interesting conversations already. It's obviously great from an RPA supplier point of view to see so much interest in automation and RPA. To introduce myself, my name's Tom Wright. I'm the commercial manager at NDL. And hopefully most of you are familiar with what NDL do. We provide software tools specifically for the public sector, all focused around trying to improve the way that we work, trying to reduce admin, and also, trying to do more with less, essentially. What we're going to talk about today is SX, which is our RPA tool. Now, I'd be more than happy to stand up for hours on end and talk to you about the benefits of our tool, but I thought the best way to do it, from experience, would be to invite a couple of our customers up and talk. So they're going to talk about their RPA projects, their RPA journey, how they've approached it, potential challenges, barriers, but more importantly, the undoubted benefits what RPA technology can offer. So I'm really excited to say I'm joined by Patrick from Medway Council, who's going to be explaining a little about a project that we undertook earlier this year. And then I'm going to be joined by Jonathan at Housing 21, who's going to be explaining about his RPA journey so far. Medway Council have used RPA software for years and years. Jonathan is right at the start of the journey. But also, what we tried to do with this presentation is approach it not just from a technology point of view, but approach it from a business point of view. From an RPA project perspective, especially, it's the business that really understand the process, and it's obviously the technology team that's going to deliver that automated process. So just before I hand over to Patrick and he can introduce himself properly and explain a little bit about the council and the project, just wanted to highlight the background and the relationship that NDL's had with Medway. So, there's so much buzz around RPA and AI and intelligent automation at the minute. But it's quite important to say this technology, although it's advanced, it's been around for quite a while. We've worked alongside Medway since 2011 with regards to RPA. And their initial focus was all about taking information from the front office and populating the back office. We're all familiar with the many benefits of citizen self-service, pushing our citizens to online forms. But even today, I'm still quite surprised. We have a lot of people sat in a darkened room rekeying information. Medway use SX to do that. Medway also use SX to integrate a number of applications together. So instead of somebody sat there rekeying and copying and pasting information from system A to system B, they use SX to do that. And Medway have also undertaken a lot of big-scale, big migration projects. So that's the lifting and shifting of big packets of information. SX is provided a development environment for organisations with training for them to develop their own automations. So the majority of the projects Medway have been able to undertake themselves. But we do have a services capability as well. So if you just don't have development capability, or they're busy on other projects, or if you have an emergency, urgent project that just needs doing straight away, NDL technical consultant can arrive on site and prepare and deliver that automation software for you. And that leads me nicely on to a call we had probably around this time last year, Patrick, with regards to your project. So, Patrick.
I would like to say I'm not a technical person. I'll leave that to you, the experts in the room. I'm Head of Revenues and Benefits at Medway Council. Medway Council is actually North Kent. It's part of the Thames Gateway. We're a unitary authority. That means we're responsible for social care, education, amongst the normal sort of things that you'd expect at a local authority. We've got a population approaching 280,000 people, made up of 116,000 dwellings, 6,500 businesses. Now, I'm ashamed to say, had not heard of NDL. I've worked at Medway Council since it began in 1998. This was something that was dealt with by our IT team and our transformation team. I'm responsible for revenues and benefits and took over in April last year. So I wasn't aware of all this work that was going on. I took over from a manager who's very experienced, had been there for a number of years, And he quite quickly took early retirement, and we was a little bit surprised. And I was fortunate enough to be appointed to that role. And I found out how, and I'm going to use a football analogy here, how David Moyes felt after following Sir Alex Ferguson. In as much as there came out a number of things like contracts were starting to end. And there was one major contract that was going to end very, very quickly and caused me quite a big concern. As I say, I'm responsible for revenues and benefits. We collect £250 million per annum for council tax and business rates, and we pay out £100 million by the way of housing benefits. So serious, serious money and an awful lot of data that we've got there. So I found out that we've got to change our document imaging system because the current supplier's contract was due to end in April 2019. They wanted us to continue. It was going to cost me a lot of money, serious, serious money to continue. Money that the council did not have. Medway Council's lost. It's lost 13% of its external funding from government when compared to 2012. Significant sums of money. Our demand on our services, particularly in social care, as obviously is in the news, has increased dramatically. So there was a driver for us to somehow reduce our costs in our service, and quite significantly as well. I was also, once I'd been appointed, I was then told that there was possibility of a shared service with a neighbouring authority, Gravesham, which covers Gravesend. Now that was a little bit of a surprise to me as well, because that hadn't been mentioned at my interview. So thank you very much. There was also, from that opportunity, I discovered that they had a number of systems which was very similar to the systems that we had at Medway for delivering revenues and benefits, with the exception of the document imaging system. So again, that sort of fitted in quite nicely. Another driver for change is transformation, not just digital transformation, but the council was looking at moving to software as a service. So any new systems which we wish to procure, we had to take that into account. And then, of course, there was the end of a contract with a document imaging system, and also a third-party IT support team as well, who carried out our scanning and indexing. So all these things were coming out. So I was really pleased that I'd taken on this new role. So I needed a creative approach, and the reason for that, as I already said, was it was going to cost me, it says thousands, it was hundreds of thousands of pounds. It was going to be the biggest system change for the Revenues and Benefits Service for 18 years. Something that came out that I wasn't very impressed with was that our previous supplier had encrypted the data of our documents. So I thought, my initial thought was we could drag and drop these documents into the new one. No, we couldn't do that. The volumes we were talking about was 10 million documents. These documents varied generally between 1 and 40 pages for a document. A benefit claim, on average, is about 40 pages. So we were talking of serious volumes. We were receiving 1,500 documents a day. So this was, again, was going to cause us a problem. And then, of course, I think it was May last year, GDPR went live effectively. So I also had the pressure, I've got 10 million documents, and I think these need cleansing, and we need to remove those that we don't need anymore. So this was a very big task for us. Timescales. Well, timescales were very, very tight. I needed to get this in by April of this year, 2019. I had a number of other contracts that were also ending for the service. I've also now been told that I've got to look at sharing service with a neighbouring authority. So I thought, well, I've got a number of documents here. Maybe we could look at staff using this, doing this. No. And this is the reason. 1989. I worked it out that for us to open a document, to then print to a PDF and then copy that to a different folder was going to take about 40 seconds for every document. Now, if we were to do that for all of the documents that we had, that was 50 to 70,000 hours of work. So if I had one person doing 40-hour week, and I'll give them a little bit of overtime here and there, and they don't have any slip breaks, they've had to have started in 1989. So that was what we were up against. And as you can imagine, I was rather concerned. Fortunately, having spoken to our experts in IT who had already worked with NDL, they said, have you thought about using robots, as they put it? And no, not at all. What do you mean? And then they explained to me, and I thought, well, we'd try that. But I was a little bit cynical. I'm under a lot of pressure. I've got a number of things that we've got to do. This is a real risk area for me. It's a big service. So, solution. And as Tom's mentioned, SX, NDL's robotic process automation platform, was put forward to us. And we had a meeting, discovery meeting with Peter Brightwell. Peter's not here today? I can say this then. Peter was wonderful, absolutely brilliant. He was so calm, I wasn't. He was very, very calm. And he went through with me what our service was. Did we need to take all those documents over? Well, I could take the 10 million documents over. However, I am at some point then going to need to cleanse them and remove them for GDPR. So I need to remove them down. So after discussions, we decided we'd look at moving, at that point, it was about 5.5 million documents. We would migrate those. And they were based on a number of things. They were based on the facts of, was it an open account for council tax or business rates? If it was, we would take all the documents over for that one. Was it a live claim, a benefit claim? Then again, we would take all the documents over for that particular case. Everything else we wouldn't take across unless it was a closed account that had arrears. And unfortunately, we still have a number of people who owe us quite a bit of money, about £14 million as it goes, for council tax. So we needed to take those over as well. So we wrote some scripts to identify these particular cases, and we created from that a control file. I made that sound a lot easier than it actually is. But I just imagine it, in my world, as a big spreadsheet. And basically what it had was it had the unique ID number for the documents, it had the type of documents, it had a page identifier, so we knew how many pages that there were. This control file for us was massive, absolutely massive. It was really important for us. We needed that to give us the confidence, after all the things that I've been told by Peter, and I did believe him, but I did still want to know that when I said I've got 5.5 million documents going over, that 5.5 million documents have been received. These documents could be in various formats. They could be letters, they could be emails, they could be electronic forms, they could be notes that we've actually put on the system, they could be notes that we've appended to the documents. So we went through all these various things. Now, that gave us we did a little trial. We tried it for a couple of thousand. That seemed to work okay. There was a little bit of tweaks that we needed to do, particularly with notes that we hadn't really taken into account. We come across one or two issues with emails. Emails have changed. I didn't realise. Emails have changed in the numbers of years. We had documents going back to 2001. So they come across in a slightly unusual way. But we could deal with that. We could cope with that. They were getting fewer and further between that we actually needed. But even when we've taken a snapshot of these 5.5 million documents, I've still got 1,500 documents coming in every day. And my staff are still working on documents, and they're completing some, and people are moving in and they're moving out. Real big problem. How am I going to do this? So we came up with an iteration process, and very basically we captured the data, the 5.5 million as we've got, and we had in there an indicator which was effectively a modified date. So we could add to any future files any changes that had actually happened, and that's the way that we maintained it. And we still kept this control and this record of how many documents were going across. And we had a number of cases where the document was actually corrupt, and it was corrupt in our old system. So it wasn't that the process of migrating it had corrupted it. So that was good. That helped us with data cleansing. And then we found that we was one document out. One document. And can you imagine, in 5.5 million documents? And again, we found that was a corruption that we just hadn't picked up. But we couldn't believe it. 1 out of 5.5 million had gone across. By the time we went to go live, we actually had over 6 million documents. So, it was a very, very big process. Peter Brightwell from NDL based himself in our IT office, which works magnificently. He could talk to all the experts about the networks, about the overheads on the system. He could optimise various processes to make sure that the robots that we had were functioning correctly. We were asked to set up 60 robots. We didn't know how many we could use. 60 was the maximum number of user licenses that I had left that I could use to put on there. But the overhead on the system would obviously be quite a bit. These robots are working 24/7. My staff are also working. They're also doing these processes a little bit more quickly than a human being could. Put an awful lot of pressure. Peter, bless him, sat and looked at and all the figures, and he would tweak it, and he'd say, Pat, we've reduced it down to 20. We can see that the overhead was too great. We're going to increase it to 25 now. And what we did end up doing was, out of hours, when my staff weren't accessing the system, we actually ramped it up to 40. So we never got to 60. We only needed 40 in the end to maximise and optimise the use of it. So my staff had to create user accounts for these robots. And that probably had the biggest discussion in the office. And we come up with the name of Mickey Ironman. Now, don't get me wrong, we take this very seriously, but we did have one bot who, I think he went on strike. That's what we thought. We could not get him to work. And we scratched our heads and we looked at it and we looked at it. Unfortunately, we discovered that he hadn't gone on strike. It wasn't an error because of the robots. Guess what? It was a human error. When we set the user up, we put an extra space in his name. And so that's why that one didn't work. But that actually sits on my desk at the moment as a reminder of the process that we went through. So, summary of the results. I was cynical. I was extremely happy at the end of it, as you can imagine, when all these documents had gone across. 6 million documents had successfully been transferred in various formats. It saved us hundreds of thousands of pounds, can I say. Now, this was part of a bigger project, obviously, for us to move over to a new document imaging system. Unfortunately, whilst the robotic part went extremely well, the actual moving over to another document imaging system didn't go quite to plan and did actually get delayed. And that's where NDL came into their own again and helped us with some further iterations of data, which I'm very grateful for. And that was done at the very last minute. So I'd like to publicly say thank you, because that really did help us where our new supplier had actually let us down a bit. Fortunately, we're now up and running, and touch wood, everything seems to be okay. So my word there is, or my phrase there is to go for it. There are so many opportunities. Since we've actually done this, I've been approached by a number of local authorities who use the same core revenues and benefits system that we do to ask us how we did it, because they're now in a similar situation of moving from a third-party document imaging system to the same system that we've moved to, which integrates fully now with our core revenues and benefits system. And NDL has been the solution for us. So I do encourage that. And success, and the work that we've done at the council has, I'm really pleased to say, been deemed to be a success, and has actually been recognised for an award for the amount of money that we've saved as part of the transformation budget. And also ongoing now with our business change team, they are now starting to look to see how RPA can be put into various parts of the council to help with services. And today is a very special day because we've got the overall final tonight, which I know Tom's coming to. So please don't email me any questions expecting an answer tomorrow morning. But hope that helps. Thank you.